Ask Reddit by Reddit Read Alouds. Marriage counselors. What are the most common mistakes couples make? I have provided couples counseling at different points in my career. Some of the common mistakes I will often see are 1. Expecting partners to be able to read their mind and anticipate needs and wants. 2. Goes with the first one. Lack of communication, comfort with discussing difficult topics, or one partner being uncomfortable with discussion a topic which leaves both partners feeling frustrated or dissatisfied. 3. Blaming their partner for all issues in the relationship and not taking ownership of their own role in dysfunction issues. 4. Not expressing gratitude towards your partner on a regular basis. Experiences and expressions of gratitude can have a really positive effect on psychological well-being as well as relational strength. 5. Not giving intimacy in their relationship enough attention. This includes but is not limited to sex. Many relationships start with the hot and heavy phase where intimacy can come naturally. As this phase diminishes, many couples do not spend the time and energy to consider how to maintain a healthy level of intimacy now that it doesn't just come naturally. Wife has degree in marriage and family counseling. One of the bigger factors in a successful marriage are couples responding to repair attempts during arguments, conflict. Rescue attempts are often little jokes or olive branches to help overcome issues and arguments. Edit. People keep asking for an example. My wife didn't buy movie tickets in advance for date night this last Sunday and it was sold out. It sucked. She laughed and sheepishly said, "Well, at least we get to spend more time together staring longingly into each other's eyes." That was her rescue attempt. It works two ways though. I also have to respond positively to it, which I did. We did a lot of staring longingly into each other's eyes last Sunday. Edit 2. I thanked my wife for the fake internet points and told her why. Her response: "That's funny because you're not even responsive to rescue attempts. Idiot." I can't stop laughing. Edit 3. I'm a putz and my wife is the counselor. They're called repair attempts, not rescue attempts. Therapist here. Have served couples. Number one problem I see is overactive threat response creating anger and rigidity. People don't stop to turn down their defense mode and lose sight of love because all their energy is going towards being right or controlling the outcome. Of course that control comes from a place of fear, but fear and vulnerability feels too dangerous, so it typically gets expressed as anger, frustration, or rigidity. Surrender to not having control. Accept what's in front of you and cultivate compassion, please. Because you're rigid couples who just can't prioritize empathizing with each other over your fear response are driving me nuts. Edit, just adding a smiley face, and that this is the most common case I see. Not the only. There are lots of folks who won't fit this pattern. Currently a student in a clinical psychology doctorate program, focusing in marriage and family. If you aren't already familiar with it, I would recommend taking a look at John Gottman's work on romantic relationships. He is one of the best known researchers on this topic. Perhaps his most famous work is The Four Horsemen. In a 30-minute interview, Gottman was able to accurately predict which couples would divorce based on their interactions with each other, particularly when those interactions included 1. Criticism, 2. Contempt, 3. Defensiveness, 4. Stonewalling. Research from the Gottman Institute has expanded on this to provide a pretty comprehensive list of factors that led to couple conflict and divorce. Gottman also addresses solutions to these issues, which primarily exist within his form of couples therapy. Take this all with a grain of salt. This is one perspective on relationships, but it tends to be a pretty robust and well-researched one, and it happens to be the one I'm the most familiar with. My personal understanding on the issue is that problems arise from a lack of humility and the challenge of getting out of deeply ingrained pattern cycles of conflict, which generally requires both partners to accept fault and extend grace. Not listening. Most people listen to respond and don't listen to hear. This is what I spend the most time teaching couples how to do. Not a marriage counselor, but going to a marriage counselor believing that it's like a judge and he will tell them who's right and who's wrong. Divorce lawyer here. Talk about money. Talk about sex. If you're marrying someone with a shitty credit score, you should know how and why they ended up with it, lest you find yourself in their shoes very quickly. A credit score can cost thousands and take years to rebuild. Know if they have any tax liens or liability. Are they paying child support and do they have any kind of garnishment? Who is going to be responsible for managing the finances? How many credit cards does the other person have and what are their balances? I've seen money kill a lot of marriages. Another one a lot of people don't think of is actually talking about sex, not just having it. Do you enjoy the sex you have? Would you like to have more of it? Less? Would you like to see it change? Do you or the other person have any weird kinks? Just have the talk. Different sexual wavelengths can be difficult to reconcile. 1. Keeping score. A partnership is a team, not a competition. Whether a person keeps score of everything they have done, or everything their partner has done, it is a death knell for the relationship. This is one of the most common causes of resentment in a relationship, and you see it often when people use absolute terms to describe themselves or their partners. That is, I always, she never. Remembering that each person has his/her own needs, abilities, skills, and boundaries is essential to a healthy couple too. Expecting that because your significant other knows you better than others and is around you most, that they are aware of all of your thoughts and feelings. Your partner is not psychic, and no matter how often they are around you or how well they know you, they cannot pick up on every nuance to determine how you are feeling and how they should respond. That is called emotional babysitting, and it cascades into a host of problems and unnecessary hurt. Not a therapist, but I read an article once that I found very useful. I can't remember any exact terms, but basically, how you react when your partner reaches out with small probes for connection. It's not necessarily big hobbies or interests, but little things throughout every day that are sort of unconscious reaches for positive feedback from your partner. For example, I see a pretty bird outside and I say OMG, come look at this cool bird, or hey, check out this song I heard that I really like. If my partner passively or blatantly rejects that, it feels bad, even if I don't always fully recognize that in the moment. Over time, those micro rejections, as I call them, start to build up, and it's why people start to feel like someone doesn't really care about them. On the flip side, even just a little bit of positive attention and sharing in a moment makes you feel so good. Again, even if you don't realize it, getting up and looking at the bird is saying, this is important to you in this moment, so it's important to me. It's basically like those are the small shared experiences that build up a joint life, and if you start to neglect your partner in those small ways, you can grow distant. I try really hard now to never ignore or reject my partner's small reaches. I often don't care about the Instagram meme he wants to show me or the latest NBA news, but I'll listen or look and laugh because I want him to feel loved and appreciated. Edit. They are called emotional bids, and I found a blog post from an actual professional explaining it. Children. I work with couples and their relationships a lot in my line of work, and do some forms of counseling, though it is not my job or training. But one of the common threads I see running in the midst of relationships, marriages that fall apart, is the kind of selfishness. People that don't quite realize that marriage works best when you are both acting in the other's best interest and seeking their happiness more than your own. It crops up a lot, but not exclusively, in sex intimacy. If your primary concern in sex is you are not going to build any kind of bond or intimate connection, and nor is it going to be much fun for your partner. Marriage is a lot about sacrifice, and the couples I see thriving are the ones who are each willing to make sacrifices for the other and for their family. Couples who get married thinking that the coming decades of marriage are going to be exactly like the dating or the honeymoon phase, when they face major challenges or speed bumps in their life together, have a real hard time dealing with it. But I thought I was supposed to be happy. When your significant other brings something to your attention that they want, don't react harshly if it's something they've refused to bring up sooner. Getting loud or defensive "why didn't you bring this up sooner" will make them shy away from bringing things up again due to negative reinforcement backlash. This is especially true if they've been victims of any kind of abusive relationships. Source: literally killed my marriage because I was an idiot and didn't respond in an open, non-positive way. I've been married for 10 years and my partner is an MFT. All of the suggestions in this thread are wonderful and accurate. The one thing that I want to add onto them is probably the biggest lesson that my partner and I have discovered over time. People change. You will change. They will change. It is nigh impossible to have the same relationship 2 years in that you did at the start. Don't try to hold on to it. The only way my partner and I have stayed together for as long as we have is because we were able to adapt to each other. That being said, Don't try to force a relationship that's inherently dysfunctional. It's not a mark of failure for a relationship to end. Change seems scary, but the truth is you've already changed. In my experience, the most common problem married couples experience is going to see a marriage counselor instead of a licensed psychologist. The latter has significantly more experience and training to help couples. A marriage counselor has very limited training and can very easily do more harm than good. Source: met with several marriage counselors, were terrible. Had a psychologist specializing in couples, and he saved our marriage. What are some marriage mistakes you have noticed? Drop it down in the comments and subscribe for more Reddit Read Aloud.